Picture a circus elephant. It weighs 5 tons. It can uproot a tree with its trunk. It can flip a car. Yet, when the circus is over, the trainer ties this massive beast to a tiny wooden stake in the ground with a flimsy rope. The elephant could snap that rope with a sneeze. It could walk away without even feeling the resistance. But it doesn't. It stands there, perfectly still, trapped by a twig. Why? Because when the elephant was a baby, it was tied to that same stake. Back then, it was too small to break the rope. It pulled, and it tugged, and it screamed, but the rope held. Eventually, the baby elephant learned a brutal lesson. Struggle is useless. I cannot escape. Now, 20 years later, the elephant is powerful enough to be free. But the mind of the elephant is still the mind of the baby. It believes it is trapped, so it doesn't even try. You are the elephant. You hate your job, but you don't apply for new ones. You are in a miserable relationship, but you don't break up. You want to get in shape, but you never go to the gym. You tell yourself you are being realistic. You tell yourself, it's complicated, but you are lying. You aren't being realistic. You are suffering from a psychological condition that has convinced you that you are powerless, even when the door to your cage is wide open. Welcome back. Today we are going to learn why you give up, and why your brain has trained you to be a victim. To understand this, we have to go back to 1967 and look at one of the most famous, and honestly, one of the cruelest experiments in the history of psychology. Martin Seligman, a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania, was studying dogs. He divided the dogs into 3 groups. Group 1 was the lucky group. They were put in a harness for a while, then released. Nothing bad happened. Group 2 was the control group. They were shocked with electricity, but, and this is key, they had a lever they could press to stop the shock. They learned that if they acted, the pain stopped. They had agency. Group 3 was the nightmare group. They were shocked, but they had no lever. Nothing they did mattered. If they barked, they got shocked. If they stayed still, they got shocked. If they pressed the lever, they got shocked. They learned that the pain was inevitable. They learned that their actions had zero effect on their reality. Then came part 2. Seligman put all the dogs into a box with a low fence in the middle. He turned on the floor, electrifying it. All the dogs had to do to escape the pain was jump over the little fence to the safe side. It was easy. The dogs from Group 1, the lucky ones, jumped immediately. The dogs from Group 2, who had the lever, figured it out instantly and jumped. But the dogs from Group 3, the ones who had learned that nothing matters, they didn't jump. They didn't even look for an escape. They just lay down on the electrified floor and whined. They accepted the pain. They physically could have escaped. The fence was low. The solution was right there. But their brains had been rewired to believe that escape was impossible. Seligman called this learned helplessness. Now you might be thinking, that's terrible, but I'm not a dog. Well, unfortunately, it works exactly the same way in humans. In the 1970s, a researcher named Donald Hiroto replicated this with people. Instead of shocks, he used a loud, irritating noise. One group of people could stop the noise by pushing a button. The other group had a button, but it didn't work. They just had to sit there and listen to the screeching sound until it stopped on its own. Later, they put both groups in a room where they could easily stop a noise just by moving their hand. The group that had the working button earlier stopped the noise instantly. The group that had the broken button earlier, they just sat there. They listened to the noise. They didn't even try to move their hand. They had learned that they were victims of their environment, so they stopped fighting. But it gets darker. This doesn't just make you passive, it can physically kill you. In the 1950s, a scientist named Kurt Richter did an experiment with rats that sounds like a horror movie. He took wild rats and put them in a jar of water to see how long they could swim before drowning. The rats were strong. They swam for 60 hours before giving up. They were fighters. Then Richter took a new group of rats. But before putting them in the water, he held them tightly in his hand until they stopped struggling. He made them feel helpless. He made them feel like they were captured and there was no escape. Then he dropped them in the water. How long do you think they swam? 60 hours? 30 hours? They died in 15 minutes. They didn't die from fatigue. They didn't drown because they were tired. They simply gave up on life. Their hearts actually stopped beating. They looked at the situation, decided there is no hope, and their bodies literally shut down. Richter called this a voodoo death. This is the extreme version of what is happening to you on a micro level every single day. Imagine a kid in math class. He tries to solve a problem. He fails. The teacher scolds him. He tries again. He fails. The other kids laugh. After enough repetitions, that kid learns the lesson. I am bad at math. Nothing I do changes the grade. So, when he gets to high school, and the teacher offers to help him, he doesn't take it. He doesn't study. He stares at the paper and accepts the F. He isn't stupid. He has learned helplessness. It happens in the corporate world. You start a job full of energy. You have great ideas. You pitch them to your boss. Your boss says, "That's not how we do things here. You try again next month." "No, too expensive." You try again. Stop rocking the boat. Eventually, you stop pitching. You stop caring. You become a zombie who just clocks in and clocks out. And then, when a headhunter calls you with a better job offer, you don't even take the interview. You think, what's the point? All bosses are the same. You stay in the jar of water, waiting to drown, because you forgot you know how to swim. But here's the crucial question. Why do some people give up while others keep fighting? In Seligman's Dog Experiment, not all the dogs gave up. About 1/3 of them, despite having no control, never quit. They kept looking for a way out until they found it. Why? What made them immune? It comes down to what psychologists call your explanatory style. This is the story you tell yourself about why bad things happen to you. People who suffer from learned helplessness tend to have a pessimistic explanatory style, which views problems through 3 specific lenses: personal, pervasive, and permanent. First, personal. This is the internalization of failure. When a pessimist fails a job interview, they think, I am unhireable, I am stupid, I am awkward. They make it about who they are. When an optimist fails an interview, they think, I didn't prepare enough, or the interviewer was in a bad mood. They make it about the situation. Second, pervasive. This is the bleed. When a pessimist has a bad breakup, they let it destroy their whole life. They stop eating. They stop working. They stop seeing friends. They think, I am a failure at love. Therefore, I am a failure at life. The optimist compartmentalizes. They think, my relationship sucks right now, but I'm still a good employee and a good friend. They don't let the poison spread. Third, and most dangerous, permanent. This is the forever trap. The pessimist thinks, it will always be this way. I will never get out of debt. I will never lose weight. They view the setback not as a moment in time, but as a default state of existence. The optimist thinks, this is a rough patch. It's temporary. Next month will be different. If you view the world as personal, pervasive, and permanent, giving up makes perfect sense. Why fight if the problem is you, if it destroys everything, and if it will last forever? But here is the good news. You are not born with these beliefs. You learned them, and anything that is learned can be unlearned. Seligman didn't just diagnose the problem, he found the cure. He called it learned optimism. You can physically rewire your brain to stop being the victim. The method is called the ABCDE model. A is for adversity, the bad thing that happens. B is for belief, what you tell yourself about it. C is for consequence, how you feel and act. D is for disputation, arguing with your belief. E is for energization, the result of winning the argument. Most of us stop at C. Adversity. You get dumped. Belief. I am unlovable and will die alone. Consequence. You lie in bed for a month and eat ice cream. To fix this, you have to force yourself to do D. Disputation. You have to treat that negative voice in your head like a prosecutor you are fighting in court. You need evidence. If your brain says, you will never find someone else, you need to dispute it. Say, objection. That is factually incorrect. There are 8 billion people on Earth. I have been in relationships before. I have friends who love me. The statistical probability of me never meeting another human being is 0. If your brain says, you always fail at everything, dispute it. Say, wrong. I graduated school. I got a driver's license. I learned to cook. I don't always fail. I just failed at this one thing. You have to actively hunt for the evidence that you have control. You have to remind yourself that the lever works. When Richter, the guy with the drowning rats, realized why they were dying, he changed the experiment. He took the rats, held them, and put them in the water. But right before they gave up, he pulled them out. He let them rest. He fed them. He showed them that there was a savior. He gave them hope. Then, he put them back in the water. This time they didn't die in 15 minutes. They swam for 60 hours. Why? Because they believed that rescue was possible. They believed that their struggle had a purpose. You need to be your own rescuer. The trauma you went through in the past was real. The failures were real. But that was the past. That was when you were a puppy in a box. That was when you were a baby elephant. You are not that person anymore. You have resources now. You have options now. The stake in the ground is just a piece of wood. The fence is only 6 inches high. The electricity is painful, I know. But lying there and whining about it won't turn it off. The only way to stop the pain is to stand up and jump. So, look at the areas in your life where you feel stuck. Look at your job, your relationship, your health. Ask yourself, am I really trapped? Or have I just stopped checking the door? If you want to learn more about how to break out of the mental cages you built for yourself, hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments, what is a stake in the ground that you are still tied to, even though you could pull it out today? Remember, the door is open. You just have to walk through it. See you in the next one.